Yo, what is going on everyone? Guiding Light here, back with another Tiny Tina's Wonderland video, and in this one I'm going to be going over the best ways to level up in Tiny Tina's Wonderland, and basically some of the endgame content as well, and the best ways that you can utilize this endgame content to grind for the best legendaries in the game while also leveling up your character as fast as possible. Now, one of the ways to level up in Tiny Tina's Wonderland, if you just want to farm XP, is to simply go back to some of the old boss fights where you can actually replay the bosses. This is going to give you better loot because you're going to be at a higher level this time going around. So if you ever want to grind for some quick cash or even just some quick loot and XP, you can kill the bosses a second, third, fourth, fifth time, as many times as you'd like, to farm up that loot. So the higher level you are, the better loot it's going to drop and the better chances of some of those legendaries to come out. This is a pretty decent way to grind out money if you haven't finished out the storyline. Now, once you do finish out the storyline, you will unlock this new area called the Chaos Chamber. Now, this is actually one of the best areas in the game to farm for legendaries, XP, and money once you have it unlocked. Now, this is going to be one of the best ways to level up, and that's why I actually suggest putting off some of the side quests until you have unlocked these areas. That way, once you go back to do some of the side quests, you'll be level 40, and you can actually go and get higher level weapons from completing those quests. Now, if you want to go and do side quests before grinding out this room, by all means you can, and it's really not going to make too much of a difference because eventually you will have to come to the Chaos Room regardless, but there are some pretty nice side missions that are pretty fun to play out. Now, once you do unlock the Chaos Chamber, there's going to be a few different tiers in which you can run. The normal tiers are going to get you tons of XP and cash and loot. However, what you really want to be focusing on is the Chaos tiers. Once you begin these Chaos trials, it will actually unlock harder and harder difficulties, and each time that you complete one of the stages, it will scale onto the next one. So this is going to be stage 1. Once it has completed, obviously you're going to unlock stage 2, and you'll be able to basically keep scaling up these missions to get better loot and better XP each and every time that you go inside. Now, if you start one of the other trials, you can still grind for the loot. However, you will not unlock the next difficulty, and if the chaos is not turned on, the chaos level, it's not going to drop as good of loot. So when you come in here, you really want to try to run the chaos version. That way you get the best possible chances at drops. Now, like I said, guys, you will unlock this as soon as completing the main storyline. So if you want to save some of the side quests for later, you definitely could, because you're going to be able to go through those side missions a lot faster once you have unlocked these weapons from here. And that's why if you're just focusing on leveling up and that's your main objective, you want to save some of those side quests for later. But if you just want to, play out the story and see what that's about, obviously do the side missions at your own will. But this video is just focusing on how you're going to level up the absolute fastest. So once you come in here, you do want to try to basically just farm out the rooms. It's pretty straightforward. Now, like I said, you can farm bosses as well. However, this area is a lot faster, and in my opinion, it's a little bit better because your loot is going to vary. You're not just going to be limited to that one boss's loot table. You're going to be having the loot from a bunch of different enemies when you come in here. And not only that, but the enemies in these areas are basically endless. As soon as you get out of the dungeon, you can run right back into the dungeon. It's just going to be an endless stream of enemies, loot, and basically just chaos all around. As you can see, I'm getting tons and tons of money as well. I'm up to about 1.5 million. And I only had a million maybe like 20 or 30 minutes ago. These dungeons are going to absolutely milk for money as well. These are just the absolute best endgame activity that you can go about. Now, I'm going to talk about a few different ways that you can get even better loot out of these missions and actually get even better XP as well. So we already went over chaos mode. That's going to be step number 1. You do want to activate chaos, as it's going to get you better loot and it's going to allow you to scale the missions once you complete the dungeon. Keep in mind, guys, you only have a limited amount of lives when in here, so if you die too many times, like I think it's 3 or 4 times, you will actually have to restart, and you will not receive progress for those chaos levels. You will have to do the dungeon all over again. So I do suggest, honestly, playing with friends if you want to, but I honestly just like running solo, so I didn't mind it. Now, the first thing that you guys want to do to earn more XP is you want to keep going up to the Dragon Lord. Every time that you finish a room, he will give you an option as to what you want in the next room. It's going to either give you a buff, and you can choose it to an easy buff or medium buff, and sometimes it will also give you a hard buff. Now, if you guys want to be getting the best loot and leveling up as fast as possible, you really want to be clicking on the hard option or just whatever the hardest available is. Sometimes only medium will be available, but you really do want to be clicking on that option. So as you can see here, I complete the room, and when you go up to the Dragon Lord, he will actually give you a bunch of different options. So you're going to clear out the encounter. He's going to hold up these 2 gems, and what you want to do is basically just click on the hardest one possible, and that's going to make the next room harder, which will also make the drops and XP better as you kill those enemies. Now, another thing that you can take advantage of in these chaos dungeons is by doing these side quests. You're going to see next to the main objective, there's a side objective that's normally to either defend an area or get kills with your melee. So if you end up completing the side objective, you're going to get a bonus drop, so it's going to increase your loot chances, and it's also going to give you a bit more XP as well. So if you have the chance to complete that side mission, I definitely suggest doing that, but when playing solo, it can be difficult at times. So the more people you have with you, the faster it's going to go, and obviously the more XP and stuff you're going to get. Now, after completing the first or second stage, it will give you the option to actually make the encounter elite. This will make the enemies 4 to 5 levels higher than you, which will make it a little bit more difficult. However, it will increase your XP gains substantially, and it will also increase the drops quite a bit. So you really do want to be going and making it elite as much as you can, especially if you have a team, as they will be able to revive you, and it's definitely going to be a lot easier when running with a team. So I suggest using the matchmaking features if you're having trouble. But definitely go ahead and try to make the missions elite, and this is going to increase the level of the enemies, which will then increase the drops and XP gains. Now, one thing you do want to be keeping an eye on are your gems. These gems are only going to drop in these chaos dungeons, and you want to be stacking up as many of these gems as you possibly can. Now, you may notice that there's these little upgrade stations where you can increase your overall damage output or maybe even increase your maximum health, and you could go ahead and buy a few of those on the way to the boss room. But the more gems you have when you get to the end of this mission, the better, because you're going to be able to basically buy the exact loot that you want. And I'll show you guys what I mean here in a little while once we get to the end. But once you get to the end, the more gems you have, the better loot you're going to be able to get. And it will actually let you pick exactly what kind of loot you want. If you want an assault rifle, if you want an armor piece, you want a ring, you're going to be able to pick and choose exactly what you want once you get to the very last mission. So once you've gone through 5 or 6 stages or so, you will get to the end of the dungeon. The dungeon will provide a boss fight at the end, and you'll be able to reset your ammo and health before going inside the room. I highly suggest doing this, otherwise it's going to make the mission extremely hard. And if you do not loot those boxes at the beginning to get ammo, you're not actually going to be able to get any during the fight as well. So you really want to make sure that you stock up on ammo before going into each and every new room. But either way, guys, each dungeon at the end will have a boss. The boss might not necessarily drop all of that great of stuff, but it will give you a ton of XP, and it will give you stuff to sell, so you're going to be able to milk a lot of money out of these dungeons. Well, if you don't get any crazy loot off of the drops, you'll know that you'll definitely have some items to sell. So these dungeons only take about 10 or 15 minutes, and you're going to get over 100 drops just from completing the dungeon, but the real loot comes at the very end when you get into the final room. So this is just the boss loot. The boss loot, don't get me wrong, it's pretty decent, but it's nothing in comparison to what you will get after you open up the final room. So all this loot here is basically just stuff you can sell. You're going to be making probably anywhere close to about 500K to $1 million every time you make one of these runs. Obviously, it's going to depend what your overall level is. If you're only level 20 and you've completed the main story, your loot might be a little less, but if you're level 40 already, obviously your loot's going to be a little bit better. So at the end of the dungeon, it will come up with like your damage output and all the buffs and blessings that you accepted along the way. This is just a scoreboard basically to keep track of how fast you went through the dungeon, and you can actually compare this with other players, which is pretty cool. So you can go through all of the different stats. Now, that's just there for fun, but basically what you really want to be focusing on in this room is these chests. Now, the main chest in the middle will not really grant, it's going to grant you some pretty decent loot. But if you want to get the best loot possible, you want to be going over to these statues on the side, and this is where these gems come into play. Basically, you can charge up or basically feed these rabbits the gems that you've collected throughout the dungeon, and it's going to give you insane loot when you actually go ahead and do this. This is where you're going to get the best loot out of these dungeons, is at the end once you turn in your gems. So as you can see, I was able to pick the exact weapon that I wanted. I really wanted to get some more SMGs because they're my favorite weapons right now. and I was able to immediately spawn in 2 legendary SMGs to choose from, on top of all of the other loot which was dropped during this dungeon. Like I said, it's well over 100 items, to the point where my inventory was well full just starting only in the first or second stage of the dungeon. But either way, guys, the more gems you have, the better loot you're going to be able to get, and you can pick and choose exactly what you want. There's no limit really to what you can get out of this. So long as you just have the gems to purchase it, you can literally buy as much as you want while you're in here, which is insane. Once you get out of the dungeon, it's going to take you right back into the chaos chamber, and you can literally go sell everything at the vending machines right outside, and you can just go ahead and jump right back into another dungeon, which is incredible. So like I said, guys, this is basically the fastest way that you're going to be able to level up, earn legendaries, and earn money. So all you have to do is basically just get that main storyline done, and you will unlock this area to begin grinding. So hopefully this video helps you guys out to just explain this end game content and some of the better ways that you're going to be able to earn loot and money here in the game. Now, obviously, there are going to be some boss-specific legendaries, which you will not be able to get out of this. That's going to be better for farming the bosses, like I talked about in the beginning of the video. But that's only if you want those specific legendaries. Otherwise, this is the best place to be leveling up, earning your skill stat points, and also earning money. So hopefully this video helped you guys out, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.